I had the experience of nothing mattering that was of
Yeah.
this kind of physical, none of the having to prove myself, nothing, not having to be good enough, impressive enough, have enough money, have any of it. It just was this profound sense that it all doesn't matter. And it was freeing, it was liberating. And that is my reference point to lead into when I go on a journey into the quantum consciousness and universal consciousness work. It's a touch point that I come back to.
Hello, and thanks for tuning into Power Perspectives. People, Passion, Purpose. I'm Shannon, and this episode I have with me an astutely knowledgeable clinical psychologist, an accredited universal consciousness and quantum consciousness facilitator through the Institute for Quantum Consciousness. He'll be offering one-on-one sessions as well as group sessions with the main objective to help raise the love vibration on the planet. From New South Wales, Australia, I have with me today Warwick McClelland. Thank you so much for joining me, Warwick.
Thank you, Shannon. It's an absolute privilege to be a part of what you're offering the world.
Oh, I thank you. And we is strong connected through a group of conscious people that wanted to help raise the love vibration of the planet. So I love that that's part of your mission. And obviously, you've studied so much about the mind and about existence through consciousness and the quantum field. But before we get into your work specifically, can you share with us what attracted you to, becoming a clinical psychologist and to the metaphysical?
Yes, well, look, it all goes back to synchronicity, really. It's quite um, fascinating for maybe some people to hear that I didn't even know literally what the word psychology meant. This is back in the mid 90s when I finished school. So uh, the school that I went to, I just never even heard the word psychology. I'd never come across anyone that used a psychologist. I honestly did not know what the word meant until I went to sign up for my undergraduate studies. It was a biomedical science course. So I later realized that it wasn't really taking me in the direction I wanted to go. It was sort of a prelim to maybe get into medicine or something like that, which I wasn't really interested in. And yeah, there were some elective courses that you could choose from, and I'm with my mother, and I'm asking her, "What is psychology?" And she, yeah, just gave me a little bit of a snapshot. I went, "Oh, give that a go." And as soon as I did that first undergraduate psychology subject, I went, "Wow, this stuff's fascinating," and I just was drawn to it naturally. And within the year, I'd yeah, changed into psychology as my major, and yeah, everything just took off from there. And just sure enough, bit by bit, the breadcrumbs just led me to realize that this is what I was meant to do.
But in your work now, clinical psychology, and with your work through the quantum consciousness, is do you feel people shifts right while you're with them, or is it something they go home and kind of digest and come back to report to you? How does that work?
Yes. Well, yeah. The As far as the way psychology has been trained in Australia for, certainly when I came through, as I said, in the end of the 90s, early 2000s, uh, psychodynamic methods or, yeah, those more Freudian style therapies weren't really being offered in universities. It was very much cognitive behavioral therapy was pretty much the mainstay, which was very focused on the conscious mind and changing your thoughts, changing your feelings. That be a simplification of it, but that was the general gist. It never really sat with me well. I was always drawn to, um, well, I was initially drawn to acceptance and commitment therapy, which was mindfulness based and more about observing your thoughts and not trying to change them or think that you can consciously force them to go away, but to be more of an observer of your thinking and make space for your feelings and there was a strong experiential component to the way acceptance and commitment therapy was taught. So I can see now again synchronistically that I was being guided down a path towards the work that I now am doing, which is far more, yes, far more experiential. about 7 years ago when I first trained in a process or a therapy called the Richards trauma process. I had my first introduction to working with the subconscious and the unconscious, and yeah, that just changed everything for me, really, because once I could see that people could experience rapid changes over a short period of time, particularly for trauma. That model is designed around trauma, although I think all of us have our what you would call small t traumas. It doesn't have to be that you were seriously abused or had some major single event to impact you. I think we all experience disempowered emotion across our lifetime, and so this was my first introduction or method that I was felt that I was really able to get to the core of that emotional content and shift it in an experience, not through talking about it. Obviously the talking about it is the sort of the tip of the iceberg, right? So getting into those other layers, the subconscious and unconscious was incredibly rewarding. And then that has led me to meeting some amazing people through that sort of training. A friend of mine, Dan, put me on to Pete Smith and the Institute of Quantum Consciousness, and that's only really unfolded over the last few years that I've gone down that path of doing the training with Pete, and that's just a whole other level of expanding consciousness, really, even beyond the subconscious and the unconscious into the quantum levels of consciousness and collective consciousness and parallel lives and past lives and off-world life. Anything really can be accessible, when we believe and know who and what we really are, and that we all have the potential to tap into that without necessarily having to use a plant medicine or or have some particular amazing skill that some people seem to have. And then internal family systems has come on board in the last few years as well, which is another very experiential approach to working with, I guess, what some people in the world of personal growth would call shadow parts, or any of the fear-based elements to who we all are that we can't deny have become a part of us across the lifespan. So
that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. And as you're speaking, I've got like 20 more questions there. But so you started actually saying, talking about the Institute. Can you just share with people that have, like myself, before meeting you, I had never heard of the Institute for Quantum Consciousness, but then just in researching for our time together, I was like, wow, this is incredible. And there's a lot of facilitators like yourself. So you guys are taking the teachings and then bringing them out. Can you share with us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, sure. So Peter Smith has trained previously under Michael Newton, who was responsible for a method called Lives Between Lives hypnotherapy. Admittedly, I haven't trained in that modality. I don't know a lot about it, but I know that it has very much paved the way for where Pete is right now with the work. So Michael Newton's work involved taking people into hypnotic states and realizing that there was a pattern, that there was this planning process in between each lifetime, where the soul basically decided, what challenges and what characteristics it wished to experience in the lifetime that was to come. It was, to my understanding, a very amazing modality and breakthrough therapy. And Pete, practiced in that modality for a long period of time before he started to realize that there was more, that could be accessed aside from the the way that Lives Between Lives work unfolded, and that you could take anyone effectively and expand the awareness, into high vibrational frequencies, and access wisdoms, as I stated a little earlier, from past lives, from lives where we were, non-human, future versions of ourselves, work with, energies that we might be challenged with in this life. So again, still looking at the vibrational echoes of physical illness or mental illness, and what they are telling us, but from accessing these expanded states. So yeah, he's really, created an amazing, with through his own intuitive methods as well. He accesses his ways of bringing this work to the world in these same expanded states. Certainly not a conscious mind, phenomenon to get the inspiration for what he's now offering to the world. And yeah, he's got an amazing team of mentors around him, and his mission is primarily to train as many individuals in these methods to take the work to the world. And yeah, it certainly has people from all over the globe training in quantum consciousness and universal consciousness. And yeah, I just feel very fortunate that I found him. And
awesome. And I mean, there's so much to every little part that you're saying. There's so much to it, and if I may start with kind of a big question, but it's at the basis of all of these things, is what is consciousness? What is consciousness to you?
To me, yeah, I won't try and answer it for everyone else. Yeah, to me, it is the energy that binds, that connects the entire universe. Yeah, I see it as the source of the unified field, and yeah, certainly is in everything, really. Certainly not just something that human beings have access to or can play with and raise and drop, etc. So yeah, there's consciousness in plants, there's consciousness in the ether, there's consciousness and intelligence that is everywhere, and that is invisible and binds everything. So yeah, that's my take on it.
For the work that you do, when you were saying people can go into these altered states where they can access their future self and their past self. If anyone listening, I want to, how, like, do you go into a theta brainwave? Are you your past life regressing people? How does that work?
Yes, the way that I describe it is that when people maybe say experience a hypnotic or a hypnotherapy experience, there's this, I guess, sense sometimes that you are dropping down into a space, even though, I'm certainly not, I don't think of it that way anymore. And actually, I like, say, for example, the way Bashar's teachings talk about, more of an inverse kind of an iceberg concept, where the tip is actually at the conscious mind is actually at the bottom, and then subconscious is above, unconscious is, another level of wisdom, far beyond what the conscious mind is able to access and comprehend. And then, yeah, we're continuing to go out further with higher levels of collective consciousness, universal consciousness, etc., accessing the soul at that much higher level. Now, it really just starts with the individual believing that who or what they are is truly magnificent, that we are that. When you start with that unshakable belief that that is what you are, who you are, and you have a facilitator who knows and sees exactly who and what you are already raising your vibrational frequency to a level where you're starting to expand into that universal or quantum space. So the fact of the matter is, the way I see it is that we are always connected to that higher. We don't necessarily experience it consciously because we're too grounded in this physical 3D reality, but we are always constantly connected to it. And it is just starting with that, that inspirational conversation, with that, helping people know who they really are, and trusting in that. And then when you bring the individual's trust and vibrational frequency with the facilitator's vibrational frequency, two coming together and focusing on that expansion, it's actually not that difficult. It feels sort of no different to having a meditative experience or a guided meditative experience in a similar way that many people would. Just have a guided experience. So and it's not that complex. It's not that and every individual just really has their own experience of how that information comes through. Yes, it really is surrendering into that trust of whether the information or the wisdom, I should say, coming through visually, through words, through metaphors, through whatever way. There's not one way that those wisdoms will come through. It's diverse, and so it's a beautiful process. It's a privilege, and I'm just along for the ride when I'm facilitating that. It's certainly not me doing any healing. The individual is accessing it all themselves, and I'm just this support to keep nudging my clients and to trust in what they're accessing and what they're able to access, and bring it back into three-dimensional reality, because there's not a lot of point in accessing those expanded states and those wisdoms if it doesn't then ground back into who we are in the physical world, because that's where we do still
where
have
we
to
use
live.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
And obviously you've been facilitating the ride a lot, but when you have been the person that is doing the work or experiencing it, can you share something that has really made a big difference for you, like a time that maybe your most expanded experience of this work?
Oh, for sure. Now, I wouldn't have classically called myself someone who's highly sensitive to the energies around myself in the world, but just noticing what happened after that experience, which brings three gifts with it: the ability to observe but not absorb. That it's instilling at a metaphysical level that capacity to observe and not absorb, to know what is mine and what is theirs, or what is mine and what is someone else's energetically, and energetic discernment. So the capacity to know which energies to surround myself with, and being selective in which energies one would expose themselves to. And so, going into that experience, I wasn't expecting a lot, given that I'm not highly sensitive. But that was, one of the biggest, sort of shifts for me, in just realizing that even, when the people I care about around me are upset, and might be at me, might be at something else, that I've tended to carry this sort of responsibility, or this feeling that I have to fix it, I have to help it, or that I, somehow that it's, either my fault, my responsibility. And after doing that, well, having that experience, that journey, it was just so much easier just to, acknowledge it. It's not that I lose empathy or compassion for that individual that might be suffering around me, but I just wasn't owning it, and it was just a lot freer and easier to move past, and that's continued, and
That's
it
great.
continues from that experience. Yeah, beautiful.
Do you have to keep touching up on it? Like get regular checkups, I suppose would be.
Yeah, I don't find that with Pete's work that is the case. I think the other model, the internal family systems, working with parts of the psyche or the personality, so to speak, that has that element of continuing to work with parts that have, I guess become stuck or held fear beliefs or, held fear-based energies. I think, that's what I'm finding I do a lot within that model. But within the quantum consciousness and universal consciousness work, I've found that generally it happens in the experience, and that there is not a lot of integration required,
Awesome.
whereas people who go and have, say, a psychedelic or a experience, plant medicine, what I'm sensing anyway is that there is generally a fair bit of integration of that experience required afterwards to really,
Yeah,
bring it in, because
for
you're in a
sure.
different altered state of consciousness that's created somewhat artificially through the medicine.
Mhm.
Um, but it doesn't necessarily automatically follow in and integrate in
For
to
sure.
come back to everyday three-dimensional consciousness.
Definitely not. Yes, I understand that. That's great. And as you're sharing, it's reminding me, you let me know that there's a lot of people still waking up to this stuff. And it's scary when veils are just slowly being lifted, or not even slowly. Sometimes it's just like ripping off a band-aid, and more people are having this experience as we continue. Um, what kind of knowledge would you share with people that are looking to be supported in this? Like they feel isolated and alone in their awakening, and they don't know who to talk to or what to do. And I know that you're very good at helping those people. What would you do for someone in that position?
Well, yeah, I think what I'm very passionate about, or I know that I'm passionate about, is helping bridge that gap between um, experiences that seem very, you know, extrasensory or non-physical or just otherworldly, I guess, and the everyday three-dimensional experience that or the science, traditional Newtonian based science, reality that we've all, I guess most of us, or generally, have been raised in or programmed in. And this is where I think quantum physics and quantum mechanics, even though I'm no expert in those areas, but having enough of an understanding of those concepts to help demystify things for people is, I think, comforting, so that yes, they don't feel as freaked out about what's going on, and that all this stuff that maybe in past generations was just picked off as being woo woo and no basis to it, that there is a logical way to understand it. I think when you can appeal to the logical mind enough that it goes, okay, yeah, that makes enough sense, then that bit that's fear-based in the logical mind can recede a little, and people can start to, surrender into what it is that they're experiencing. But yes, it's definitely what I love doing, a part of the work that I really enjoy one-on-one, and it's certainly going to form one of the areas that I work with within groups. That's part of my new, I guess, offering to the world, which is under the brand of the Soul Psych, and I think having groups of people to support each other is going to be amazing once that gets up and running for me too.
Do people feel like, let's say with yourself, can you describe a time that you had the process of the treatment and then did you felt immediately different? Or did it like rock you to your core? Has anything you've experienced in this work done that through the quantum or universal consciousness?
Oh, look, there's definitely been some of the journeys that I've experienced as part of the training that, yeah, that left me feeling distinctly, different, more, yeah, just expanded it and found it quite hard to come back into, the three-dimensional reality. Yeah, it is quite hard to put into words, exactly what it is. I think when we had a little chat prior to today, I think I revealed to you a little snippet of having that experience after a plant medicine experience, and with DMT. No, that's not plant medicine. Sorry, that's Buffo. I think it's known as, and that experience really. I use that though as a reference point even in this other work. So I had the experience of nothing mattering that was of this kind of physical, none of the having to prove myself, nothing, not having to be good enough, impressive enough, have enough money, have any of it. It just was this profound sense that it all doesn't matter. And it was freeing, it was liberating. And that is my reference point to lead into when I go on a journey into the quantum consciousness and universal consciousness work. It's a touch point that I come back to. But yes, definitely have felt changed deeply after it. But also in even doing internal family systems work, I accessed a part of myself, this was just 2 days ago. I immediately, so with internal family systems and working with different parts of ourselves, the psyche, you can do it with your eyes open, you can do it with your eyes closed. So I was doing this particular one with my eyes open and working with a part of myself that I think can sometimes be a bit aloof and have a bit of a wall up if I'm not familiar with, say, a situation or an individual, and I can see that it goes right back to my early childhood, and it's been pretty strong, even though I have so many other parts of who I am that want to connect with people and be warm, but there's just still this part that pops up in certain situations, and it popped up the other day when I was with my partner meeting someone new around a business situation. So it was a bit of, and I go into this sort of more serious mode. And anyway, I realized I wanted to make sure that part wasn't going to be a problem, particularly on a call like today. I wanted to make sure that there was no
what is that
part? Well, I think that part is, well, no, what I know about that part is it's trying to protect me from judgment. Okay, so it creates an aloofness or a wall because it thinks if I'm too open and exposed that I could be judged, and people, and so, and I can trace that back to my childhood. I can see where there are elements in my childhood where I felt that, and I felt a need to bring that part into play. Right, and it was quite cool because as I'm talking to this part with my eyes open, and the thing about parts also is that they don't register time and space the same way that self does, or our higher self, or and the parts actually were often stuck back around the time they got created. Although this part thought I was 14, didn't think I was like a real. I'm wondering whether the part started younger than that, but it saw me as a 14-year-old when I asked it, "What age do you think I am?" to this part of myself, and the 14 just pops in my head. Show, okay, you think I'm 14? When I explained to this part my actual age, it was like, really, you know, it's shocked, it's surprised, it's baffled, and it's a it can be a huge game changer for.
Yeah.
That's one of the big things that I find in doing the internal family systems work. That one of the big questions, if once a part realizes your age, and it's kind of got stuck in a time warp, not realizing your actual age,
Yeah.
it can change it. And then the part was just like, okay, yeah, I don't think I need to do this job anymore, you know. And so sometimes a part will just want to soften up and sort of retire a little bit. So if it was sort of, I don't know, worrying, a part that worries about things or whatever, or, you know, anticipates, if you might go, okay, I can still do my job, but I'm just going to tone it down a few notches and only show up in these situations. But this part went, all right, no, I'm going the opposite end. All right, I'm going to help you be open now. All right, I'm going to go from being aloof to the opposite. And as soon as it said to do that, my whole vision just went, and I just felt this massive, and it kind of said to me, it said, how's that? How does that? And I went, yeah, that's great. You know, I literally felt it in the moment, that it just sort of, and I hadn't had that experience before working with what is referred to as a protective part in internal family systems. So that, you know, that
That's
part was
great.
there trying to protect me, and it just immediately gave me an experience of changing its functioning.
You got your sign that yes, it's completed, or
Yeah,
like that you worked through something big.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
like, so do you, to confirm things with your body, with your subconscious, do you do muscle testing? Or you
Um,
said it kind of popped in your head. Is that you're trusting the whole body scanning kind of thing?
yeah, as far as where to go with, yeah, what I am finding with my personal approach or my personal experience of doing parts work or internal family systems work on myself is I'm now becoming aware of certain body cues that really tell me that there's a part that needs my attention, um, and or multiple parts that need my attention. Really, I get a lot of sort of just it's like a mild kind of cramping at the bottom of my rib cage, mostly on my left,
Hmm.
but and then also just in the middle. And it's when I get that tightening, I know, okay, there's parts. It seems to be the same sort of location for majority of parts, and even as I talk about it now, they kind of go, yeah, that's where it
Hmm.
happens, you know. And it just sort of, I don't know whether there's a part later on that needs a bit of attention, but yeah, so I tend to keep going until that starts to soften, you know, when I start
Right.
to feel that soften up. Um, and so, yeah, in the experience I had a couple of days ago with that particular part I'm referring to there was two other parts as well that I was, you know, working to. So that three parts. And I thought, you know, I'd focused on what I needed to focus on, and that I could stop, and then that was still there. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's another part that still is calling out for my attention. And, you know, yeah, I found another part, and then it started to soften up after I'd worked with that part as well. So yeah, I know. Yeah, I've trained myself a bit in muscle testing, so I can do a little bit of the finger muscle testing on
But that,
myself, and
but you
using
just
the
know kind
emotion
of,
code.
yes, I love that, Dr. Bradley T. Nelson. But like, so when you're experiencing this softening or this indicator, then is that quite quick? Or, I mean, it's not 10 years of cognitive talk therapy. Like, how does that move? At what speed
Oh, do you mean as far as the shifts in the
in your
tightening in
body?
my body? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that tends to happen in real time, that I notice it's softening up. And I'd say when I'm doing internal family systems work with my clients, in one-on-one, it tends to be, the feedback's generally pretty instant, that and when apart, because, you know, I think if we look at it this way, that the subconscious slash unconscious and the body are intimately connected. You know, that's the subconscious and unconscious kind of speak through the body. I think you'll find, and emotions speak through the body more so than, you know, than say the conscious mind, which is more sort of verbal and thought based. You know, and whereas the emotional slash subconscious slash unconscious is a more visceral kind of experience. And that's where Richard Schwartz, in what he's created with internal family systems, a big part of it is to focus on, okay, what are the cues in the body as you start to tune into parts of you that might need, your attention, might need your healing, etc., and use that as a starting point to then start to have this conversation with these parts of yourself, or this communication. I'll say conversation because parts can communicate. Mine are very verbal. My parts are more sort of word based. I've never had strong visual experiences when I've done a lot of my inner work or expansive work. So I just roll with that, and not that I don't get anything visually coming through, and I do, probably more so using in the universal consciousness and quantum consciousness experiences that I have. But doing some parts work, I don't get a lot of visuals coming through, and it's just more of a verbal. But certainly my clients will have, images that might be metaphors that they've got to interpret, or they might see their parts as little characters and they've got to, interact with. And
open to
so
individual, open to like an individual, how you see and communicate is how it'll communicate. Your body might communicate that way.
Yeah. And I tend to find that, going back to your question around, having how it's felt in the body, that when the individual, myself, or the person I'm working with is on the right track in how they're interacting and coming from this loving space, this supportive, heart-based space in their interaction with their part, because that is the key for internal family systems work, to come from self with a capital S, which is loving and compassionate and calm and curious and connected and all these, lovely, beautiful, which I just think of as being unconditional love, this unconditional love towards parts, that when the individual's on the right track with engaging with those parts in that way, and the parts feel validated and heard and supported, that the body is kind of where it tends to soften up first. So they'll feel, oh yeah, I can feel that softening up now, like a tension in the body, or a pressure, or a symptom of some description. So
Right.
yeah,
And
find
I
that
didn't thank you. And I didn't ask you before, but we probably should define it. But what is the family work?
internal family systems. So there's the definition of internal family systems is that if you define each of those words, inside of us, internally, we have a family of parts that make up us, that make up the personality, right? That we are not a unified personality. We have parts to the personality, and that is why individuals pretty much at some stage in their life will always say, I have part of me that wanted to do this and another part of me that wanted to do that, or I thought this thing. And then, if we were always just completely decisive and, had a single track mind, then we'd never have any kind of internal battles or conflicts or anything like that. And so the way that I would explain it is, we come into this world, and this is why I love this model, as it aligns with my own personal and spiritual, beliefs, because I feel like it just, it sits perfectly alongside a lot of other things that I've come to know and believe about the nature of, who we are, which is, basically that we come into this world as that pure self, as that unconditional loving self. And that's, some of us maybe get wounded even very early. So, obviously if you had a birth trauma, or in utero, that there was already a sense that, there were energies telling you that, you're not wanted, or that there was stress or whatever. So technically you can have a sense of lack of safety or feeling unloved in utero, or straight after you're born, that you have no conscious awareness of, but again is there in your unconscious, so that those wounds can be there very early for some people. But let's just imagine that if you an individual, for example, had a smooth, period while their mother was pregnant with them. Birth was fine, early life, they were nurtured pretty well, as a lot of young children and infants are. But then, you know, you get to a point where, yeah, something will happen and you'll get wounded. So something scary will happen around you, and all of a sudden there's a fear-based. Now there's a fear-based part. You've got this loving core self, but now there's a part that got scared. All right. And that part that got scared, it doesn't feel nice. We don't want to feel scared anymore. So the personality responds by producing other elements, these protective parts, so that we don't feel scared again. You know, so we might then develop a part, for example, that worries about things, because if I'm looking ahead to things that could come up, then you know, maybe that part's not going to get activated and triggered, because, you know, I want that part thinks it's protecting it by being on top of things and anticipating everything that could come up. Or that a protective part could be a passive part that decides to just be very quiet and not rock the boat and do, you know, because it doesn't, again, want that feeling to come out. Or, you know, a part that got criticized and felt like a failure, you know, that wounded. So part that took on the belief that I'm failed or that I'm not good enough. And then, you know, you get parts on top of that, such to protect that part from coming forward, such as a competitive part, yeah, or an achieving part, you know, that are there to protect. And so that's how our unique personalities form, depending on these. And some of them can be really big experiences. Some of them can just be very subtle experiences in childhood that create some kind of, I guess, fear-based energy. You know, you'd have to put it in that category. So where these pure loving little balls at our core, and then fear-based energy comes in, and that these parts, the original wounds, they're referred to as exiles, as in we just want to keep that emotion away. Don't want to feel that anymore. That's what the protectors decide anyway. And so the protective parts think their job is just to keep that wounded emotion at bay. Don't let that come back through. That hurts.
And so the work is so the work is just to talk to that part. And if I'm hearing you correctly, there's parts and then there's layers of the parts also.
Yeah.
Picturing like a lasagna that you, so when you penetrate one of the parts to, like you said, for yourself, you talk to that person that was, or that part of you, and you got it to be more open, because vulnerability, you can share stuff, you don't have to fear being judged. So if we were I'm just very intrigued by this, because recently I've chatted to somebody that was a Psych K facilitator, and it had similar elements, but so how then do you, or maybe I interrupted you right before you're going to tell me.
That's okay.
So if you're then going to clear the part of you that, or maybe what we can do, Warwick, is we could do one if you still feel like it, if you think there's enough time, but to clear something.
We could give it a try. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. If you do you have a target that you're referring to yourself at the moment?
I think everybody has something all the time, or they wouldn't be in this 3D. But yes, just when you were speaking about that feeling of being judged, there was a deep resonance. And I think in the work that we do as empaths and compassionate people, and wanting to help the world to be a better place, and helping people not suffer in their own minds and mental states. But I think confidence, having to speak in a platform where you're putting yourself out there, and that fear of being judged, I have definitely some work to do there.
Yeah, well, certainly we can have a little demonstration. I'm happy to dive in and do a little demonstration. I guess I can just finish off, a little bit of the explanation, and then we can dive in if you like.
For sure.
So you're right. There's layers, and the protective layers are the ones that you want to work with first, because they're the gatekeepers. You know, that they to respect the system as it is. You know, there's a hierarchy, and the protective layers are there first, and to respect that that's how you're made up, that you work with those parts first, and then potentially you can get access to, well, at some point, generally, majority of the time, you'll then get the access to the vulnerable parts that are underneath, the wounded parts, the inner childlike parts, I guess, that are sitting underneath the surface. Now, sometimes that can happen in a single session, you know,
Right.
that you can get to the protective part, and then the vulnerable part is there straight away, you know, to go with both of them. Sometimes, you know, the protective parts are, you know, not ready to reveal those other wounded parts, or those wounded parts, those exile parts aren't ready to kind of come forward just straight away, you know, and so you come back and you do more of it. And this is more of a model for ongoing self-work.
Right.
Obviously, you know, my desire is to help people experience some significant shifts in the sessions that they do with me, but then yes, definitely to get the most out of what this model offers is doing it on your own, and that's will be part of what I seek to offer in doing, you know, groups around this in coming months. So yeah, but you know, if we were to do one now, then do a little parts session or an IFS session now. Yeah, it'll just start with figuring out what the target part is, and then settling in, and then yeah.
Does it
Okay.
feel like I have a feeling in my chest? And I was wondering, as you were saying that, just describing it, can obviously our subconscious is listening 24/7 for all of our
Yeah.
lives. In knowing that you're trying to do some work, does it kind of dig in deeper, if that makes sense?
Yes.
Burrow
Yeah,
in?
it can. Oh, or other protective parts can kind of start activating sort of straight away, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I even have, and some people need to do the work with their eyes open because they go to close their eyes and straight away they might be spinning, or, you know, feeling, you know, nauseous or something like that, because a protective part is coming in straight away going, no, don't go here. This isn't safe to do this. For some reason they think that it's not safe. And that's just what protective parts do. They do what they think they have to do to help the person, but they're not necessarily helping the person as much as they think they are, these parts. But none of them are bad. That's the key thing, you know, and that's one of Richard Schwartz's books titles, No Bad Parts. None of them are bad. They're all just doing what they think they need to do. Protectors trying to help, and the exiles are just, you know, they're kind of stuck in the background, you know, kind of waiting to be saved, you know, and none of them are bad. So and that includes an angry part or a critical part, or a, you know, it doesn't matter how they appear to be functioning, as they've all got a purpose and they're all doing it for a reason. So
They're all doing a service. Right.
yeah, exactly. So you're sensing that you'd like to have a little bit of exploration of this part of you that fears judgment. Is that what you said? Sorry, a moment ago.
Yes. I think it's pretty common, but I know I'm going to be coming into some more platforms and speaking in bigger spaces, and that's like, ah, you know, so
Yeah. All right. Well, you happy to give it a
yeah,
try?
I'm very
Yeah.
happy.
And you happy to do that? You happy to do that as an eyes closed experience?
Yes, I would be.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. Well, I just invite you to close your eyes and perhaps just use your breathing just to slow everything down a little bit more. And taking those slightly fuller in breaths translates to slightly longer out breath. And even as you breathe, just in that fuller way, you can also bring an intention to that breathing, such that the in breath is about opening up. That there's this sense that you can just choose to be more open, the same way your rib cage and your chest opens up on in breath. And as you release each breath, that you can let go. You can let go of expectations, of attachments, having to force anything to happen here. Just choose to open up on the in and let go on the in. And just now bringing curiosity to that part of you. Invite that part of you forward, or parts forward, that are associated with this fear of judgment. Know that there are components or parts of you that are activated around that theme, and just be curious about how they present and allow it to present to you. It might be as physical sensations, it might be as images in your mind, as anything really. And just once you get a sense of what it is you're noticing, just share what it is you're noticing.
Like shields with cartoon character legs and arms, and they're holding weapons.
Yeah. All right. And how do you feel towards these shields with the legs and the arms?
Well, they're like smiling and happy at me, like they're on my side, but they're still carrying weapons, and that's not something that I normally associate with myself with.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But as just checking how you feel towards them at the moment, do you feel a curiosity, a calmness, towards them, even though the weapons are a little bit disconcerting? You still feel that, any judgment of them, anything like that?
Yeah, it's a gratitude, like thanks, but
Yeah.
you can go now. But I
Okay.
don't feel it threatening. I feel like, oh,
Okay.
thanks. But
Okay. So just watch out for that part of you that wants them to go. Okay. When I ask if there's that part of you that's showing up around wanting them to go, or not liking that they've got weapons, or that's maybe judging them, or just wishing that they would not be there. If you could just ask that part of you to go away, because that's not what we're here to do. You're here to engage with these parts. All right. They're not bad. All right. They're part of you. So can you just check again to make sure that the space that you feel towards them is open and welcoming and curious and getting to know them?
yeah.
Yeah, you feel that? Great.
Yes, yeah.
All right. Now just let them have their voice. So if however they might communicate to you. So let them know that you're listening to them and that you want to hear what they have to say. They've got the spotlight. And just are they more than, sorry, are they one part represented as more than one shield, or does it seem like there's more than one part?
There's like 4.
Right. Okay. And is one of them, are you able to sort of get a sense whether one of them could sort of be the first communicator?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's the leader.
All right. The others are okay to just hang back while one speaks first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So just tune into what that part wants to tell you and share when you've got it.
Just like, I'm keeping you safe.
Okay. Yeah. And just ask a bit more, maybe stay curious and ask this part, tell me more about what you're keeping me safe from.
Like, you've been persecuted before, and I don't know, I mean, it feels like it's not from this time, like this life, but it's like you've went through hard persecution before, and we're necessary.
Yeah. Okay. So it maybe feels like this is linked to something beyond this lifetime. Yeah. So give that part some more gratitude. That I know you were starting in that space, but just, really thank it for its efforts to protect you from persecution, and, see how it responds once you give it that extra gratitude.
Well received.
Yeah. and ask this part, what is it scared will happen if it was to modify its job, if it were to change its role in any way?
It's almost like it's like, well, then I wouldn't exist or I wouldn't have a job anymore.
Well, let this part know that it will always be a part of you. It cannot be destroyed. It is always going to be a part of you. And if it were to modify its job, it would just have a choice. It could have a choice to choose a different job. It could choose to rest and just have a break, if it wanted to, but still be a part of you. It will never not be a part of you, and see how it responds to that.
I think it's like, this is so sudden.
Yeah, no, let it know that you're not trying to force it to stop or drop its job completely. No, you just show it compassion, let it know that, yeah, you understand, you're not trying to make anything happen quickly. You're just there to help it. You're offering it help now, so it doesn't have to carry that load on its own. And maybe even updating it on the situation now. So you can maybe just also let it know how old you are now, situation you're in now, just in a gentle kind of way, just so that it understands.
I told him my age and it was like, oh, you got old.
Yeah, yeah, that's what happens with parts, doesn't it? They don't register that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's how does it seem to be about that now that it realizes your age?
Still shocked.
Yeah. That's it. That's okay. Let it have, and you can let this part know that you're going to keep talking to it. It doesn't have to make up its mind now as to what it wants to do next. It can just take time to process this news. But this is just huge, being there to support it. Yeah.
I think it just aged with me, like suddenly. They
Yeah.
were these cartoon faces and now they've got like a beard that's white.
Yeah. And are the other parts behind all like, are they all serving the same purpose, or are the other parts got slightly different functions that will need your
Well,
attention
for,
as well?
I would say that they were all just making sure that wrapped around my heart was one of them at all times, or wrapped around my center was one of them at all times. So
Okay.
it was more for coverage. So I think they're all on the same.
So they've all heard the same
Yes.
update. They're
Yeah.
all registered it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just check to see whether there's another part that they are protecting. Is there, you can inquire with these shields, is there any other vulnerable parts there that
I think it's my heart
you're
in
okay?
general. Like there's maybe a block there or something, but it still feels almost necessary for them to have a place to protect from,
Yeah.
like a projection of protection.
Yeah, of course, and you are not trying to take that job away from them at all. What you're also offering them though is that you have capacity to bring some help and healing if there are some vulnerable parts that need it. So maybe these parts have just been trying to shield from any more hurts getting in there, but you can actually go and get to the hurts and offer the hurts or the vulnerability some help. If they're there, if there's some vulnerable part that is there.
Like just started listening.
Mm.
It's like a small darkness in my chest.
These shields, are they okay with you exploring?
They like
that dark path.
they like let me in, and then the path in was dark.
So they've given you access.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Well, and how do you feel towards this dark path?
Like I want to soothe it.
Right. Okay. Excellent. We'll just continue to bring that compassion and support to that dark part and let it unfold. See how it unfolds, whether it takes any more specific form or whether you're again giving it the spotlight so that this dark part be heard, be seen, be validated, whatever it is. Let it express to you whatever it is.
I think maybe it just wanted that acknowledgement
Yes.
that it's dark and alone in there. But
Yeah.
acknowledgement helps that not feel
Yeah.
such isolated.
And does it just present as simply a dark shadow? It doesn't have any other form to it when you're focusing on
It's just the dark spot. Like I'd want to, if it was on a white counter, I'd want to like wipe it off. But it's like tougher stain than you'd think.
just tuning to see whether it needs anything else from you. If you offer it compassion and love, just sense how it might be able to offer it that, or if there's anything else you can offer it this dark spot.
I think for now, it's like it's okay for it to be a dark spot. If I try to clean it off the counter, it's digs
No,
in harder and then feels unworthy. So I should
no,
just continue to honor it and show it compassion, as you're saying.
yeah. And so it doesn't feel like it's stuck where it is. It doesn't want to move location or anything like that.
No, it's like just right in my heart.
Yeah. All right. And does it feel like there's anything else that needs to uh, happen in this interaction with this dark spot at the moment?
No, I think just that initial acknowledgement and then introduction, I guess, so I can continue to observe
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And there may be opportunities for more to happen with this dark spot later on, and that you've now, like you said, formed a connection with it, and so it didn't soften or change or lighten or anything at all. It just stayed the same even when you acknowledged it. Did it change at all?
Yeah, I think it just kind of is aware that I'm aware of it now. And before I was
Yeah.
aware of it, but it didn't know. Now it's maybe considering me.
Yeah, beautiful. And would you have any other ways to describe what it is? Is it carrying a particular emotion or set of emotions, this dark spot?
I think I've had this feeling before when I've felt either like a freedom potentially being taken away or like feeling trapped in a situation or but I don't have that right now. So I don't, it's a similar feeling, but not a similar issue in my life.
Yeah, sure. Just let this part know that you'll definitely be back to engage with it further, and you can check in with it however you see fit. Really, now that you've become aware of it and felt some love towards it, and just check again with how the shield parts are now.
They were sitting down having a sandwich, so they feel better.
They're pretty fine with what's just unfolded there with
I
you
think
and this.
so. Yes, they were because they were on guard before and now they're sitting on a log eating a sandwich.
Beautiful. And just again, send another ripple of gratitude to them, or you can um, say goodbye for now, or see you later on for now to these parts, because again, they are part of you, and you can engage with them whenever you see fit and whenever you need to now. just check if there's anything else that you want to say or offer before wrapping up this little experience.
Do my own little. Thank you. I think we're good.
Excellent. All right. So just start to bring the awareness more externally and focus on where you are in physical space. And again, just feel that last little ripple of gratitude through you, knowing that you've just formed connections. Yeah. Oh, you can, sorry, your eyes were open. You can come back into the room as you said.
I like that. And we don't go inside so much like that. You know, we always are told go inward and look within, but we're not given an actual set of instructions. So, and even if you have them yourself, having a professional or having someone else guide you through it will actually help you do it more than hearing it and trying to do it yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And you could see there right there at the start, your initial reaction when they had the, the weapons was like, oh, you don't need to be there anymore. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, so that's the other part. That's the problem solving part or the fix it part or that naturally will show up when we find an aspect of ourselves that we think is unnecessary or shouldn't be there. It's just automatically, try and tell it, it's okay, calm down. We're all right. Rationalize it so that it backs off. Yeah, it's not actually doing as much for us as we think it is. And sometimes those parts will back off when you rationalize them to tell them it's okay, calm down, whatever. It's not that it doesn't work to an extent, but is it really helping them in the long term? I would say no. I would say you're not honoring them as parts of you that are there for a reason and that need your love and your support to bring that integration over time, because the parts will start to then over time reflect more that self, that that your true self. They will start to be more closely aligned with those characteristics of calm, compassion, curiosity, love, respect, patience, etc., etc. They will start to sort of blend in a little bit more with your true self, as opposed to being a bit more out there on the fringes, doing their little protective thing and carrying that burden. So yeah, it's a beautiful, elegant process. It's so simple in lots of ways. I'm glad you got to
Thank you. I
get a
appreciate
taste
that
of it.
so much. I have had something like that before, but I was so oblivious to what someone just asked, can I practice this thing with you? And I was like, okay. And it was similar, but I mean, when you provide the context and you know what you're actually trying to achieve, that was great. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so I'd encourage you to um, engage with those parts again. Now that black spot, it seemed like it was an exile part, which
yes,
is
that word just resonated. That word just resonated. Yeah.
Yeah. So that it seemed like it was the carrier of just the hurts. It didn't have a protective function. It was just some kind of a wounded part. From an IFS point of view, there's more that can be done with that part as far as helping with healing. But it what we were getting there was as much as that it needed, or
introduction,
as far as you could go with it at this point in time. That and you've got to respect what the part, if it doesn't want anything else from you, if it's not ready to be released or unburdened, I guess is the word that we use in the model. Then and you just start with what we did today, and then check in with it again later and see whether there's more that you can offer it later. But I'll give you an example just so you can kind of understand the steps in case you wanted to go down that path. So if, for example, that had been more like a little wounded child part, there was a little girl that was scared or hurt or something like that, the first step is to have that part feel completely, as I said, in that exercise, seen and heard, validated. Let that part, tell you whatever it wants to tell you, because it's been kind of locked away. It's generally been pushed away. So let it be seen and heard. Sometimes those parts are even angry and like, well, why have you left me here for so long? What? And you need to apologize to them. So I'm sorry, I didn't realize that this had happened. I'm here now. I really, and you need to sometimes do that a bit with those parts. So it's, yeah, letting them be fully seen and heard. And then, you know, in a lot of cases, when you've got a part like that, it doesn't want to stay in that space anymore. It wants to be removed from that dark room that it's in, or something like that. If it feels like it's, you know, being located. And so the next step is to like retrieve it, sort of, you know, take it to a beautiful space, take it somewhere else, that part, you know, and you know, give it the relief that it doesn't have to get stuck in where it's been stuck, in the space it's been stuck. And then there's the third step of unburdening. So it's witnessing the part, retrieving it, and then unburdening. The unburdening is offering it, okay, you can release that now. You don't have to hold on to that darkness anymore. I'm here with you to support you so that you can now. And that is often done through the metaphor of bundling it all up and going, okay, let's use the elements. Do you want to put it in the fire? Do you want to send it out to sea? Do you want to send it to the air? Do you want to bury it, you know, bury it in the ground, or throw it down into the earth, or bring light in to dissolve it, you know, so that burden can then be released. So that's how it can look with, you know, I guess a more stereotypical exile unburdening process. And yeah, it's simple, but and
I love it.
so
That's
effective. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can feel how that can be so alleviating for someone that isn't aware. Like you've done so much work, and I've done a lot of work, but you know, for someone that hasn't ever heard of these things, and they're not really open first, and then they actually allow themselves to experience that,
Mm.
they must feel some huge
Yeah.
burdens being lifted off of
Yeah.
them. That's super
Yeah.
empowering.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and you're right. There's still quite a few of my clients, well, a handful of my clients anyway at the moment, that, you know, still go, am I just making all this up? And, you know, like they still got
Yeah,
that logical part of their mind coming in, kind of
for
going,
sure.
aren't I just imagining this and it's not real, you know? Um, and yeah, I just, I obviously just try to educate them and reassure them that this is how this other part of you works. This is how your subconscious and your unconscious works. It works with imagery and you know, feelings and sensations, and it, yeah, your imagination is not some part of you that's to be dismissed as childish, you know, and that it doesn't have any basis. It's actually, your imagination is actually linked to your intuition and your subconscious, and this layer of knowing that unfortunately a lot of us have programmed out of us in those early stages of life, and think that this logical mind or this conscious mind is the go-to, the, you know, the be all, when it's not, you know.
For
So
sure. Well, I have like I really want to ask you to share where people can find you, because I will, you know, this work is incredible, and you're an incredible facilitator. But before I do, I would love to just ask a final question, like on your road to like as you pursue your passion and purpose, not just what do you wish more people would know about your work, but what's been the biggest kind of lesson that you've learned doing these things?
I think surrender is has got to be up there as the biggest, uh, I guess, principle or concept to embody, to surrender and to let go of having to make things happen in a certain time, having to, you know, make something happen in one of those exercises, or, you know, having to get yourself at a certain level of personal growth or personal development at a particular rate. Like just that letting go of the timing, of the method of any of that with how things should unfold is huge. It's something that I've had to really, you know, work at, because I am my part that likes to plan and know what's coming
Mhm.
up is very, has always been quite strong, and I'm still working on it. I haven't mastered it, but I think the more I do it, the more I just go, no, everything's happening in perfect timing. It's unfolding the way it's supposed to be. I'm not made some kind of mistake and off track. It's not, if it's happening now, it's happening exactly the way it's supposed to be. And even if that's negative, you know, and that's the hard bit with the surrender, is when it feels like it's something negative or something unwanted, that I must have done something wrong. No, that's being brought up in divine timing as well, and somehow being able to stay in a vibrational state that you can work with whatever that negative thing is, and still know that it's there to help you evolve and or release, stuff that you didn't realize needed releasing or healing, So I guess that would be, my number one
Great,
area.
poignant work. I love that. Can you please share with us, where can we find you? Where can people go to see where you're at and work?
So yeah, my website is the Soul Psych, an email address there that people can get in contact with me to inquire about a discovery call if they want to do some individual work, or or potentially be part of the groups that'll be up and running in the next few months. So
Oh,
yeah,
exciting. That's great. Warwick, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. Appreciate your work, and I hope people find you, because this is really good stuff.
yeah. Thank you very much, Shannon. It's been an absolute privilege, and I love chatting with you.